up about 10 grand. That is more than they will possibly save on this health care plan. We have a plan put forward that will work.
Senator Sanders, do you want to respond?
I get a little bit tired, I must say, of people defending a system which is dysfunctional, which is cruel. 87 million uninsured, 30,000 people dying every single year, 500,000 people going bankrupt. For what reason?
But what we have to say about China, in fairness to China and its leadership, is, if I'm not mistaken, they have made more progress in addressing extreme poverty than any country in the history of civilization. Okay, so they've done a lot of things for their people.
To meet the most ambitious goal of the Great Leap Forward, Mao told the Chinese that production of steel had to double in 1 year. In a secret report, the party later admitted the full extent of the calamity. Their own figures showed that over 20 million had died from the famine. It was almost certainly more.
I will tell you what the issue is here. The issue is whether the Democratic Party has the guts to stand up to the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit, whether we have the guts to stand up to the corrupt, price-fixing pharmaceutical industry, which is charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And if we don't have the guts to do that, if all we can do is take their money, we should be ashamed of ourselves.
Thank you, Senator.
The noise of gunfire rose from all over the center of Peking. It was unremitting. On the streets leading down to the main road to Tiananmen Square, furious people stared in disbelief at the glow in the sky, listening to the sound of shots.
The troops have been firing indiscriminately, but still, there are thousands of people on the streets who will not move back.
View of China today. Do you believe China represents an existential threat to the American worker?
No, I wouldn't use the word existential threat. You know, I think China is a country that is moving, unfortunately, in a more authoritarian way in a number of directions.
There was confusion and despair among those who could hardly credit that their own army was firing wildly at them. Many were bystanders, perhaps naive about the savagery of the situation. Indeed, it was hard at times to grasp that this army was launching into an unarmed civilian population as if charging into battle.
And they are a country that vigorously protects their own interests. But what we have to say about China, in fairness to China and its leadership, is, if I'm not mistaken, they have made more progress in addressing extreme poverty than any country in the history of civilization. Okay, so they've done a lot of things for their people. Their economy now is struggling, but I think it is absolutely possible for us to have a positive working relationship with China. What I said back then and what I believed is that the function of permanent normal trade relations with China was pretty obvious to me. It is a legislation, trade agreement written by large, profitable corporations who wanted cheap labor in China. So what they wanted, it was a trade agreement which made it easier for them to shut down in this country and then hire people in China back then for 50 cents an hour, $1 an hour. Wages have gone up there a bit, but clearly much lower wages than in the United States. That was what that trade agreement